Good afternoon and welcome to McLeod Money Monday. My name is Stephen McLeod, and today I'm going to be introducing a series I'm going to be doing called Budget Basis. So this is going to be part one. The reason why I want to do this series is really difficult, I have found, for people to build wealth, to reach their financial goals, to do what they want to accomplish with money if they're not doing a budget. Listen to some of these statistics I found. 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. And that same percentage is also not doing a written budget. So, do you think that's just a coincidence? I don't think so. Furthermore, I have discovered by listening to hundreds of people talk about their stories of getting out of debt and building wealth, that one of the number one factors that they stated to being successful with their finances is having a budget, having a written plan, a monthly plan on what they're going to do with their money. So what I want to do is I want to take some time, a few Mondays, I'm going to kind of discuss some budget basics. I'm going to give you some tips. I'm going to give you some tools to help you be successful. But before we dive into that, what I want this episode to kind of focus on is actually doing it. Because if you don't have a budget, if you're not doing this, if you don't have a written monthly plan, then none of my tips are going to be useful. So what I want to do is, for those of you out there that are not doing a budget, this episode is for you. If you're currently doing a budget and you've tried it, then feel free to listen to the rest of these episodes. Especially if you've felt like you've had some frustration with it or things aren't working, I can give you some ways to help it get down and have some success with that. But if you're not doing a budget, then I really want to encourage you to get started with that. I thought about a few reasons of why people haven't tried to do a budget. And one of them that I wrote down is there seems to be a negative connotation behind the word budget. A lot of people have this idea that if you're on a budget, if you're doing a budget, that must mean that you're poor, or you can't spend money. Some people think it's restricting. Oh, I'm on a budget. Money's real tight. But that doesn't need to be the case. It doesn't need to be just when money's tight or when you're poor. I mean, obviously that's probably a good time to do a budget. But even when you feel like you have a lot of money and stuff, you still need to be doing a budget. It's not just about not having money. And our culture seems to kind of encourage that idea. I mean, I was driving down the road and I see the furniture store called Budget Furniture is basically what it's called, and I saw a car lot called Budget Car Lot. And what were the message that they were trying to imply is, hey, our cars are cheap. Our furniture is cheap. So if you're on a budget, then this stuff's for you because you must not have much money. And I'm just thinking that's a bunch of bull. Just because you're using a budget doesn't mean that you don't have any money. In fact, I would almost argue the alternative is that people who live on a budget and do it consistently are people who are going to have more money. So let's get rid of this idea that being on a budget means that you don't have money or you can't do fun stuff with money. Really, all a budget is it's a spending plan. In fact, I like that phrase better, spending plan. I'm probably going to be using that a lot more, even though I'm calling it budget basics, because spending plan really conveys the actual idea behind the budget. It's just a plan for your money. How are you going to spend it? You're just telling yourself, okay, here's the money that I have. This is what I'm going to do with it. And you get to decide that. Okay, some people say, oh, a budget's restrictive, but it's really only as restrictive as you make it. If you want to do all this fun stuff and go on vacations and stuff like that, well, that's fine. You can give yourself permission to do that. Just make a plan and do it intentionally. Because when you just kind of have the money and you're not having a plan with what's going to happen with it, it's going to disappear. It will leave you. I guarantee you that. And those of you that feel like, oh, I'm just getting by fine without a budget, well, guess what? You must be not missing that money. And maybe that's okay. Maybe you have a great income, so the dollars that are disappearing doesn't seem to affect your world. But think about this. You could be going from good to great if you're just doing fine with where you're at without a budget, just think what you could accomplish if you actually sat down and did it on purpose and said, hey, here's the money that I got. This is what I want to do with it. You could have millions and millions of dollars. So it doesn't really matter what situation you're in, whether you're living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, definitely need to be on the budget. Or if you feel like you're doing okay, man, you can be going from good to great. Just think of how you could give. Just think about how you could live if you actually were intentional with that. So here's the challenge I want to give you. If you're currently not doing a budget, is I want you to just try it. I want to challenge you to come up with a spending plan and do it for, let's say, 6 months and just see what happens. If you don't like it, then you can stop it and forget all about it. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think you're going to start finding some money pop up that you didn't realize you had. So please tune into these next episodes I'm going to be doing throughout the next few weeks. I'm going to be talking about some tips on creating a successful budget to keep you from not being discouraged if you've tried it before and thought, this doesn't work. I'm going to try to help you kind of get into the groove with it, come up with some good practical tips, and I think that you'll be pleasantly surprised. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode for this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me. Hope you'll have a great afternoon.